Welcome to Truth and Company Boxing Podcast. I'm your host, John the Truth Dioria, and today we have an interview with the First Lady of Boxing. She's also a journalist. She was also a journalist, a producer, author, radio host, motivational speaker, mentor, TV personality, podcast host, cut man, and second in the corner. This woman has held so many titles in and out of the sport of boxing. And one of the biggest ones is she was a manager, the first and most successful female boxing manager still to this day, and managed 6 world champions. Let me bring her on, Jackie Kallen.
Hi, so happy to
Hello.
be here with you on this Memorial Day weekend.
Well, I appreciate you taking time. I know you're a very busy lady, and I'm excited to actually have a chance to talk with you.
Same here. Let's fire away whatever questions you have. I'm sure you've got questions, and I know I got answers. So,
all right. So first off, now a lot of people already know this, but some fans might not know it. So I'm just going to kind of start from the beginning because you kind of fell into boxing, which is rare for some people. You didn't have anything to do with boxing. You were actually a journalist. You were doing interviews with rock bands, things like that. And you fell into the sport of boxing. So can you explain that to me a little bit?
well, boxing kind of picked me. I didn't pick boxing, but I was, as you said, I was an entertainment journalist covering the Emmys, the Grammys, the Oscars, all different sports, and just loving it, having a great time doing what I do. And we had a shortage of a sports writer at our paper. So they said, well, how about you? Wouldn't you love to be a sports writer and, get out there and cover sports? And I said, well, I can certainly give it a try. I grew up with all guys. I had no sisters, just a brother. And my dad was one of 3. And my husband was one of 4 guys. And I had 2 sons. So sports was right up my alley. So they sent me to interview Tommy Hearns, a young fighter, out of Detroit, just starting out fighting 4 rounders. And I was mesmerized by the sport. I went, oh my gosh, these 2 guys are trying to kill each other. And it was just unbelievable to me how furious they went at it. And of course, Tommy Hearns was, unbelievable at a welterweight weight. He knocked the guy out in the first round. And I went, oh my gosh. Then he came out of the ring to do the interview. And he was the sweetest, most soft-spoken young man. And I just couldn't get my head around the fact that you can be a killer one minute in there trying to knock someone's head off, and then you're so sweet. So I really felt something different about this sport. It's mano a mano. It's one man or one woman against the other. And I thought I was very intrigued by it. It was like a very kind of a poetic ballet going on, but violent. And so I got hooked and I started doing other interviews with other fighters. And then I was hired by Emmanuel Stewart at the Kronk Gym to be their publicist for Tommy Hearns and Milton McCrory and, Jimmy Paul and Hilmer Kenty and all the fighters there. And boy, did I love it. Here I am, this real fish out of water, going down to the Kronk Gym and just having such a great time with all these guys. And they were very welcoming to me and very just nice. Nobody made me feel unwelcome. And I found that the sport of boxing was something that, I just really loved. And before I knew it, I was, 10 years had gone by as a publicist. And I'm thinking, wow, I think I could do this. I've been around it for 10 years. I would like to try managing. And in 1988, after 10 years as a publicist, I decided to literally throw my hat in the ring as a manager. And I did.
So now let me ask you about that. I just found this out yesterday. And now Bobby Hitz, correct me if I'm wrong, Bobby Hitz was your first fighter. And I didn't even know that. And I know Bobby Hitz. I've talked to Bobby several times on the phone because I actually was a manager. I had some fighters for a while. So I've talked to Bobby about getting 1 or 2 of my fighters on his show before. And I had no idea that he was your first fighter.
He was. And what a great guy. He came to Detroit to fight George Foreman back in 88. And he didn't have a manager. And I'm at the press conference and looking at this really handsome Italian kid that's got no manager, and he's getting in to fight George Foreman. And I went, don't you need a manager? Because I just assumed every fighter had a manager and a trainer. He said he didn't have one. And so we kind of became manager fighter. And just from going to the gym with him, I found James Toney. And Bobby said, wow, this kid can really fight. And we watched him every day. And he didn't have a manager either. And Bobby and I both thought, wow, he'd be a great addition to our fledgling little stable that we had just started. And once we got James involved, then came Kenny Gould and Bronco McCard and Boom Boom Johnson and Pinklin Thomas and Tarek Salmasi and, Damian Full, just so many other fighters. Once like build it and they will come. And that's what.
But now, so I got a question. Like back then, like obviously you were the first female boxing manager. So how did you get these guys that are in a dominant male sport to trust a female to be their manager?
Well, I think it was kind of that I had this maternal kind of nurturing way about me. I'm very like mama hen, I look after my guys. Oh, you need new shoes? Let's get them. Oh, I want to get you a nice warm up suit. So when you go to the weigh-in, you look nice. Or let's take you and get you a haircut before this. Or, I kind of like mother henned all my fighters, and they became like family to me. And I think some of them really were attracted to that. Maybe they had mothers that were busy or working, and they came from families that were not as functional, and two-parent families, so they were very happy to have a kind of mother figure to look after them. And I think I cared about them more than just the boxer manager relationship that a lot of men had with their fighters, which was purely business. I got involved with their girlfriends, their wives, their kids. I opened my gym and they'd bring their kids in. I'd have a little playroom set up for the kids and, computers for the kids to play with. And, some of the kids got their GEDs at the gym who hadn't finished high school. And it became a very family oriented atmosphere. And I think that's what a lot of guys were looking for. So it attracted them. And once they came and saw how caring I was, I didn't just throw them into a fight for the money. I really took the time to make sure it was the right fight at the right time. And I think they came to see that it wasn't about the money for me. It was more about them and what was good for them. And I guess that's what attracted them to a woman.
So now when you got into it, obviously your goal when you first started being a manager, you probably didn't have a goal of ending up with 6 world champions.
I didn't have any goal. I was kind of flying by the seat of my pants. It's like, okay, I can do this. I'm going to open this gym and I'm going to get some fighters and I'm going to hook up with some promoters and I'm going to figure this out. I'd watched Emmanuel Stewart do it for 10 years. So I kind of knew the relationship that you needed to have between fighter and manager, between the fighter and his trainer, between the manager and the trainer, and between the manager and the promoter and with the TV executives. There were a lot of movable parts. And once I figured it out, I thought, I think I can do this. I think that if I find the right talent and if I make all the right moves, I think I can get them all the way to a world title. And I've had not just male champions, I've had Janine Garside, Bridget Riley, Daisy Lang, Yvonne Trevino, women champions as well. So it's been just a dream come true because there was no goal, there was no plan in place. It was just let's see where this goes, and I kind of do that with every new venture. I just say let's just see where this goes. Let's give it my 110% and hope that the results are what I would like them to be. And not everything is a home run or a knockout. Sometimes you fall short, but if you don't reach for the stars, you're never going to get anywhere. So my thing is just go for it. And you might just get lucky. Throw enough stuff out there and something's going to stick.
Well, I mean, you had probably one of the best teachers in the game, Emmanuel Stewart. So, I mean, all those years with Emmanuel Stewart in the gym, tell me some of the best advice he ever gave you.
Oh, there was so much, I mean, he taught me how to relate to a fighter and how to get into their heads. And because a lot of fighters lack confidence, they're really good, but they're skittish. They get nervous before a fight. They start doubting themselves, and you have to psychologically build them up and make them feel that they are as good as they are, so they start to believe in themselves and have that confidence. And he also told me that there's other fighters that are the opposite. They think they're ready for a title fight, their third fight, and you have to kind of bring them down and let them know that everything in its own time. You can't rush it. You have to just wait your turn and continue fighting a better opponent each time until you reach that level where you're capable of fighting a champion. Because a lot of fighters are, they think they're ready after their third fight. So he taught me that every fighter is an individual. You have to really get into their heads, understand where they're coming from, and work with their weaknesses and their strengths. And also to get a good trainer. Trainer is very important. That's who teaches the fighter everything. It gives them their game plan, teaches them the fundamentals of the sport. And so the relationship between a trainer and a fighter is like father son. It's very important. And so he taught me a lot. He showed me how to stop a cut. He showed me how to wrap hands. He told me what things to look for. And I think that everything I learned from Emmanuel Stewart and from Tommy Hearns. He was just a great fighter to emulate, to try to find the qualities that he had in every fighter because, 7-time world champion, Hall of Famer, he's as good as it gets. So he was my bar, and I tried to find fighters that would at least come close to that if they couldn't top it.
So now you just brought up he taught you how to basically work in the corner, and you've actually been in the corner with fighters before, right?
Oh, many, many, many times. And I'm not the trainer, so I don't go inside the ropes and tell them what to do between rounds. That's the trainer's job, and I don't step over that line. I think it's like a 4-lane highway. The fighter's in his lane, the manager's in his or her lane in my case, and then there's the trainer and the promoter. And if everybody does their job, then it's a flawless trip. When people get into each other's lanes, that's when you sometimes have clashes and crashes, and it can be a disaster. But I stay on the outside. I'll rinse out the mouthpiece. I'll put the ice on the back of their neck to cool them down between rounds, or a wet towel, whatever it is. Bring the stool in or the bucket in or whatever's really needed if I'm working that corner. There's no ego involved. We're a team, and there's no I in the word team. So each one of us do what we're supposed to do. And when you have a good team that's working well, that's what it's all about.
So being in the gym as much as you were in there and learning all this knowledge, did you ever actually just to train it all?
I've worked out with the fighters, got on the treadmills next to them, worked a heavy bag every once in a while just to let off some steam and some frustration. And the only time I've actually really gotten into the ring was one day with Bobby Hitz early on. I said, "Can I just get in and hit you and don't hit me back? You're a heavy." And I'm not a heavyweight, and I'm certainly not a male, but I wanted to just see what it felt like to just connect with someone, to just throw punches and hit a moving body. And I found it's a lot harder than it looks. I mean, just even holding your hands up for 3-minute rounds and constantly moving and being defensive as well as offensive, and watching. You have to watch every second. You have to be so alert, because you take your eyes off your opponent for 1 second and you're going to get hit. So it's such a mental as well as a physical experience that I was glad that I got in there, and I felt it. I know right away this was not something I was ever going to do.
So, all right. So just hypothetical. What if Damon Feldman, the CEO of Celebrity Boxing, came to you and said, can I match you up? Would you get in the ring and do a celebrity boxing match?
It's so funny you mentioned Damon, because he's one of my good friends. I did the commentary for one of his fights last summer with Black China. I've known Damon for years. He's a great friend and a wonderful guy. And at 77 years old, I don't think there's a commission anywhere. I don't think there's a doctor anywhere. I don't think anyone would think that was a good idea. So whether he came to me or not, unless I was fighting somebody, my age, and that's highly unlikely, I can't see that happening. But if you find someone at a nursing home that wants to get in, dig her up, put on some gloves, and we'll mix it up. Maybe Cher, she's my age.
So I want to get a little personal with you. If you don't want to talk about it, that's fine. I know you've had some health issues in the past. How's all that going now? Are we past that, or do we still have some of that going on?
You know what? I'm great. And to be honest, yeah, I have 4 heart stents. I have glaucoma, which means, my eyes aren't the greatest. I'm legally blind in one eye, but the other one's perfect, so it doesn't bother me a bit. I've had 2 bouts with malignant melanoma, but both of those are gone now, so I'm grateful. I've had some surgeries recently for kidney stones, and we all get something. I just consider that part of life and doesn't get me down. I just deal with it and just move on. So if someone asks me how I am, I'm great, 100%. I get up
All
every
right.
day, smile, and I do a whole lot in every day. As you know, I'm a very busy, active person. And so I don't really have time to be ill. And when I am, I deal with it, get over it, and keep on keeping on.
Okay. So I got another personal one, and I'm just curious about this myself because, like I said, you've been involved in the sport of boxing for like over 40 years, in and out of gyms, around boxers, just around the sport. It seems to consume you. So, and it must consume your personal life as well. So I'm just curious, have you ever been in a relationship with a boxer?
No, but how it has consumed my personal life, and that's a great question, is because when I was married, when I first started 45 years ago, I was married with 2 children, and I had all these fighters at the house day and night. Some of them moved in with because they didn't have a place, and they were from out of town, and I had guys staying at my house. And I was traveling a lot, setting up training camps in Vegas, in LA, in Atlantic City, wherever. And I think it took a toll on my marriage. I mean, obviously it did because I got divorced after 30 years of marriage. And I think my husband just, maybe just found this wasn't what he signed up for. And now I've been with someone for 23 years. And, he just understands that when I have to go to a fight, I get on a plane and go to a fight. And when I'm going to be down at the gym, I'm down at the gym. If he wants to come, he's welcome. And when you have someone that understands your lifestyle and goes along with it, it's really not a problem. And but it is, like you said, it's very consuming. There's a lot of time spent on the phones. Just it's a consuming occupation, career, whatever you want to call it, and it does affect your relationships. But in the current relationship I have, it's not a problem. Neither one of us are jealous people, and he gives me a lot of space, which I appreciate.
Okay, so I want to switch out of the sport just a little bit.
Mhm.
Most people know that. Um, Now, correct me if I'm wrong. The movie, was it supposed to dictate your life? Or was it just a movie that they kind of took the story between you and James Toney and how you guys got your first championship? Um, was it just kind of the story they changed a little bit, or was it supposed to actually follow that part of your life? The movie Against the Ropes in 2004.
Well, interestingly enough, when they first bought the story at Paramount Studios, it was my exact story. It was me, it was James, it was me being married, the kids, the turmoil, everything. They loved the story, the all the controversy of, a white woman in this sport. The whole story they thought was great. But then the producer who I signed on with, he moved to another studio. So they assigned the movie to a different producer. And for some reason, I still don't know, he changed the entire story. Took away the husband, took away the kids, made my character single. Instead of being in Detroit, for some reason, he made the gym in Cleveland, and he changed the whole story. He kept my name and the idea of a woman in a man's sport, that he kept the theme but changed all the details. So it really wasn't factual, but I think the message was there that if you're a female you can make it in a man's world. If you're a black, you can make it in a white world. If you're a gay, you can make it in a straight world. It was that kind of fish out of water story. And they stayed true to that, but it wasn't my life.
Okay. Now, there's two books out, right, that you put out. Now, neither one of them is an autobiography, though, right?
Well, my first book, which is Hit Me With Your Best Shot, it's a self help book. It's how to live your life as if it's a fight. You can get knocked down, but you got to get back up. You know, you can lose a round, but there's still another round. You got to be careful who you put in your corner and watch out for low blows. You know, it's that kind of a book using boxing and taking those metaphors and applying it to life. The second book, Between the Ropes, actually I wrote it after the movie because the movie was not the real story. So I thought I'll write the real story. But I really didn't promote it or anything like that. It was more just for my friends and family, I guess, to set the record straight. But
Okay.
now, Peter Mann, who's an author in England, he did a what they call an authorized biography called Against the Odds, the Jackie Kallen story. And that should be out this summer. And that's pretty factual because I worked with him on it. So I know that it's not all bullshit.
So, do you think that there'll be another movie once his book comes out? Would you like to do a whole movie? No?
I don't think there's any point in it at this stage of my life. I have someone right now working on a documentary, which will be very factual. And, we'll see where that goes. I'm sure when it's done, they'll put it into some film festivals, things like that. But, at this stage, the most important thing to me is if I can motivate and inspire other people to step out of their comfort zone and to try something that they really want to do and not listen to the naysayers and don't listen to the people telling you what you can't do and just focus on what you think you can do. I just want to mentor and help people and bring people out of their shell and lead by experience. I've had some hard knocks along the way, but everybody does. And a failure is a lesson in my book. And I just think everybody needs a little bit of encouragement. And anytime I can help somebody, I get emails and texts and, inquiries from people that say, how do I get into the business? What advice could you give me, in what I'm doing? And I'm so open to that. I'm very honored when people do come to me.
So, like we were talking before, boxing pretty much has consumed your life. So, do you actually have any hobbies outside of the sport of boxing?
That's funny that you ask about hobbies because, I mean, I have things that I do. I'm a big reader. I'm an avid reader. So when I have downtime, I read. I got a new book on my Kindle every day. I love to do that. I knit. I dabble in some painting here and there. I do ceramics. I make these beautiful, colorful bowls when I'm in the mood to do that. I travel when I have an opportunity. But between, I'm with a company now called Striking Beauties Boxing Gyms for Women, and we're about to franchise these boxing gyms. There's one in Boston, and there's one I think near Providence, and we're going to open up these gyms that are for women, and that's consuming me. I'm working on a reality show called Making of a Champion, and I'm working on that with Christy Martin, who is a former world champion. And we've got some great people involved. One of the producers from The Contender, a movie producer that did Sling Blade with Billy Bob Thornton and 100 other movies. So I'm working on the TV show, and I do motivational speaking. I love doing that. I just did a wonderful one in Denver for a big energy company. I spoke at the Polo Club in Boca Raton. I did a wonderful Indian casino up in North Dakota. And whenever I get the opportunity to go out and speak to a group, I love that. So I don't have a whole lot of time for hobbies, but, you know, I do spend, what time not reading, I love to be with my kids and my grandkids. And so I think my time is pretty occupied. And maybe that's a good thing because I don't have a lot of downtime. I don't have a lot of idle time. And when I'm not with my family, I'm with my friends. I have a great network of friends. And, I just think life is fantastic. So, hobbies, living is my hobby. I love it.
Okay. So now I know, and you know, that a lot of boxers have superstitions, but you've been around this sport for over 40 years. Do you have any boxing superstitions?
You know what? I really don't. Some people wear a certain pair of shoes or they have a certain thing that they wear or they have a good luck charm. And I don't think I really do. Not that I don't believe in it. I just have never had one. For a while there, um, my fighters wore the Jewish star, the Star of David, because I'm Jewish, and that was a way to honor me. Tommy Hearns did that, and in some of his fights, but that's not a superstition. So I'd have to say no, I really don't.
Okay. So like you're pretty much an open book. A lot of people know, like you just said, your story, everything you've done and stuff. So give me something that the boxing fans don't know about you.
Don't know. Let me think. Well, I can't swim at all. I mean,
Okay.
I'm one of the only people I cannot swim. I can't sing. Oh, I'm a terrible singer. There's probably a lot of things I can't do. What else can I tell people that they don't know? Probably nothing that's all that interesting. You know, I think the things that are interesting about me are already out there. So the things that people don't know, like you said, I'm pretty much an open book. I don't have skeletons in my closet and secrets. So, you know, there's not a whole lot.
Okay. Do you collect anything?
Oh, I used to. Oh my gosh. I used to collect owls. I had owls from all over the world. I must have
Wow.
300 of them. But after I got divorced and downsized, I didn't have any place to, really put them. So they're like in boxes. And then I collected kachina dolls, these Indian things, and they're also in boxes because I don't really have a big palatial home to display it all in. As you get older, you don't need all that room. I have no children and grandchildren that live with me. And Gary and I just don't need that big a place. So, yeah, I don't collect anything. Friends, I collect friends.
Okay. So give me a crazy or a funny story that happened between you and a boxing fan.
A boxing fan?
Yeah.
Oh, well, let me tell you. I mean, I get a lot of emails and, just what you would call, what do they call them when someone private messages you on
Like,
Facebook?
yeah, in your inbox,
Yeah, you're
private message.
right. So, I've had a couple marriage proposals, which I thought was amazingly flattering. But I've had strange people ask me if I would help them become a boxer. They're 62 years old, or um, I've had someone that was in a wheelchair want me to get them involved in wheelchair boxing, which is a great idea. And, really thought about that for a while because there are a lot of, there's special Olympics for stuff like that. Um, I've just had some really interesting encounters with fans. They're wonderful. I love it when someone comes up and wants me to sign a glove or take a picture. I think that's so, heartwarming, and I love that. But I think the marriage proposals are the funniest because some of the guys are so young, and I think I'm older than your grandmother probably, and so that's so flattering. That those encounters are very touching to me.
So I know like in the last 40 summers, you've known so many boxers. So I want to know who is the one boxer, alive or dead, that you would want to sit down and just have a conversation with that you've never had a chance to talk to.
I would have to think of someone that's no longer here because I've talked to every fighter that's alive in the last 45 years. But I think I would have loved to have talked to Joe Louis in his day or Sugar Ray Robinson. They were so great. I would have loved to have just known a little bit more about them. I got to know Jake LaMotta very well, and Muhammad Ali and Mike Tyson, and all the greats of our era. But I think I would have loved to have talked to even a Jack Johnson or one of the pioneers of the sport. But of course, can't do that. So I think I really accomplished talking to everyone that I've ever wanted to.
Okay. So I know it's going to be hard for you to probably narrow this down. Maybe not. I could be wrong. Who is your favorite all-time boxer?
I guess different people for different reasons.
Okay.
I I would have to say that's split between Thomas Hearns and James Toney. Thomas Hearns because he's just an amazing, iconic fighter. Well, him and Ray Leonard both I love, and I think they're both great guys and great fighters. And James Toney was my first world champion, so he has that special place. So I'd have to split it between those two personally.
Okay.
That doesn't mean they're top 10 best fighters in the world on that list. I think they're both on that list, but for my own personal list, those two are the top.
I don't know if you noticed, but I'm actually wearing a James Toney T-shirt.
Yes, you are.
He actually sent it to me too, so it came personally from him.
Well, that's special then, and enjoy it because he's a great guy.
No, I totally agree. I did an interview with him a few years ago, and he was actually really shocked that I had his fight collection. And we talked off air, and he asked for my address, and yeah, he sent me a box full of stuff, which I was completely overwhelmed by. I didn't. He just said, "Can I send you a few things?" And I was like, "Sure." And he sent me an autographed glove, some T-shirts, a bobblehead, some autographed pictures. So it was really nice.
That's really special. But, he's a generous guy, and I think he appreciates whatever you did for him during the broadcast. So I'm glad he did that. That's wonderful.
Um, let's see. So, have you? What would you get? What advice would you give somebody else trying to be a boxing manager?
Oh, well, number one, have a very thick skin, especially if you're a woman, because you're going to get a lot of stuff thrown at you and you're going to hear a lot of stuff. Got to not listen to it and just, let it all roll off you and just keep plowing forward. Number two, be strong in negotiations. If someone gives you a number, always know there's another number that you can move up from that. Don't just take the first thing that they offer you. Um, know that the fighter you're working with has the ability to be something, unless you want to just manage club fighters and keep them busy. Opponents, that's a whole other part of the business, and we need those opponents. I would tell somebody, if you want to get into that end of the business, there's a whole market for that as well. um, be prepared to spend some money, because it's going to take money to buy fights, to buy equipment, to do the things you need to properly move a fighter. Um, Certainly hook up with a good promoter, because the business has changed over the last 45 years I've been in it, and you need a promoter to move your fighter. It used to be you could just get on the phone, call all around the country. Do you need a fighter? Do you need a fighter? You can put them here, here, here. Now promoters are going to use their own fighters. So why are they going to take your kid from Detroit or Chicago or, Minnesota, and invest in him, fly him there, get him a win, and he's not his fighter? It doesn't make any sense. Plus, the kid wouldn't sell any tickets. No one knows him. So promoters sign fighters, and they use their fighters on their cards. So if you're going to manage a fighter, make sure you align yourself with a good promoter who will keep your fighter busy. Otherwise, it's a nightmare trying to get on fight cards.
Oh, Do you remember signing your first autograph?
I used to be a journalist, and I go around, to all the Oscars, the Emmys, and things like that. And I have, wonderful pictures with me with Elvis and Sinatra and all these people. So when I was a columnist for the, daily paper here, I always had my picture by my byline. And so there were times when I'd be at a concert or somewhere and someone would come up and ask for my autograph. And I was stunned by that. Like, I'm just a journalist. I'm not, the person up on stage there. And it always just kind of shocked me that anybody even knew who I was or cared. Um, I still feel weird doing that. I'll sign a glove, especially when there's other boxers on that glove. But I still feel kind of strange doing that when people come up to me. It's like, I've never collected autographs. So to me, I can't directly relate to that. I just do pictures. So to me, a picture with someone is worth more to me than an autograph on a piece of paper that I'm going to lose or stick in a drawer. So I have this massive collection of over maybe 350 pictures with every person I've ever met, just about. So that's been my way of identifying and relating to the people I've met. So autographs always seem strange to me. Like when I sign something, I wonder what are they going to do with that piece of paper? Put it
Okay.
in.
Am I losing you?
No, I'm here.
Oh, okay. No, you broke up on my screen there for a minute.
Oh,
So speaking of pictures, I got to ask you this. I read the story about when you were a journalist that you got the Rolling Stones to come to your house for dinner. Did you get a photograph of them with you at
oh,
dinner?
I have a lot of photographs of me with Mick Jagger and Keith and all. We were kids. It was 1964, their first American tour. They'd never been here, and they were thrilled to be taken to someone's house. We went shopping. I took them to a party that night. It was just they were young kids. I was young, and I was just being a gracious teenage host, saying, "Hey, you're here from another country, come on and hang with me and my friends." I didn't really think anything of it. You know, obviously, years later, it was a special occasion. It turned up in the book Stone Alone that was written by one of the Rolling Stones, Bill Wyman. And he made mention of the fact, that they had done that. But at the time, I was just a teenager inviting some other kids to come over to my house.
All right. So I know you don't like to hurt feelings, but I want to see if you'll answer this question anyways.
Okay.
So right now out there of the people that are the fighters right now that are out there, who do you think is more hype than talent?
I'm not going to answer that
Okay.
because I don't really feel that I'm the judge, jury, it's up to me to decide. I think that it's in the eyes of the fans who they like, who they don't like. I don't really get into that because I don't really feel that it's up to me to make that determination. Somebody that you like, I may not think is as great as you do, but that doesn't mean that I'm right or you're wrong and vice versa. So I don't really get into that. So you're not going to trap me there. Sorry. Nice
No,
try.
no, no. No, no, no. That's
That
why.
because I know where you're getting at because there are some fighters that people think are the greatest thing, and I think to myself, they're okay.
Well,
Not
no,
e-
I just thought in your opinion, because you've managed a lot of fighters, who are they kind of blowing up promotionally well as far as just stardom that really doesn't have a lot of talent. So
Probably the same people you're thinking of. Let's leave it at that.
okay. All right. So I got one last question for you.
Of course.
So if you passed away tomorrow, what would you want the boxing community, your family, and your friends to say about you and your legacy?
I would want them to say that she was fearless, she did it her way, but she was kind, and that she was loving, and that she approached her career like she approached her life with joy, with dedication, and was all about love, kindness, and giving back.
Okay. All right. Hold on. And the truth has spoken.